The fluorescent lights of Danny's diner flickered overhead as Nina Torres wiped down the counter for the third time that hour. It was nearly midnight on a Tuesday, and the place was almost empty except for a few regulars nursing their coffee at the far end. Her feet ached from standing since her morning shift at Morrison's grocery, but she needed the extra money. Rosa's medical bills from last month's emergency room visit still sat unpaid on their tiny kitchen table. The bell above the door chimed, and Nina looked up to see a man in an expensive charcoal suit stride in. He looked completely out of place among the cracked vinyl booths and faded linoleum floors. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, his tie loosened, and something about the hard set of his jaw suggested this was not a man accustomed to disappointment. He took a seat at the counter directly in front of her, and Nina grabbed a menu from the stack. "Coffee?" she offered with her practiced customer service smile. "Black. Strong." His voice was clipped, distracted. He pulled out his phone, his thumb scrolling with increasing agitation. Nina poured the coffee and set it before him. "Kitchen closes in 20 minutes, but I can get you something simple if you're hungry." He glanced up, and for the first time, really looked at her. His eyes were a deep brown, intelligent and assessing. "Just the coffee." Nina nodded and moved away, giving him space. She had learned to read customers over her years of service work. This man wanted to be alone with whatever was bothering him. 10 minutes passed in silence. Then his phone rang. Nina tried not to eavesdrop, but his voice carried in the quiet diner. "No, mother, I will not call her. Because Vanessa made her choice when she started seeing Derek behind my back. I don't care if it's been 2 years. I don't care that she's getting married this weekend. I'm not interested in closure or whatever therapeutic nonsense you're peddling." He ended the call with barely controlled frustration, setting the phone down harder than necessary. Nina refilled his coffee wordlessly, a gesture of understanding rather than intrusion. "Thank you," he muttered, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. He studied her name tag. "Nina, how long have you worked here?" 3 years at the diner, 5 at the grocery store during the day. She leaned against the counter, sensing he needed conversation more than solitude now. "You look like you've had a rough evening." A bitter laugh escaped him. "My ex-girlfriend is getting married this weekend. To the man she was secretly seeing while we were together. My family thinks I should attend to prove I've moved on." Nina tilted her head thoughtfully. "Have you? Moved on, I mean? I thought so. Built my company, focused on success. But apparently, everyone still sees me as the heartbroken fool she left behind." He took a long drink of coffee. "I hate that she still has that power over me, even indirectly. So don't give her the power," Nina said simply. "Don't go, or go and show her you're completely unbothered." Easy to say, harder to execute when you walk in alone, while she parades her happiness. He paused, studying Nina with sudden intensity. "Unless I don't walk in alone." Nina felt a flicker of unease. "I don't follow. Come with me. To the wedding. This Saturday." The words came quickly, as if he was making the decision as he spoke. "It's at the Grand Meridian Hotel. Black tie event." Vanessa always cared desperately about appearances. Showing up with someone unexpected would throw her off balance. "You want me to be your fake date to your ex's wedding?" Nina's eyebrows rose. "That's the plot of a bad romantic comedy." "It's a business transaction," he corrected. "I need a date." "You need money. I assume you do, given you're working 2 jobs. He pulled out his wallet, extracting a business card and setting it on the counter. "Victor Ashford, CEO of Ashford Technologies. I'll pay you $5,000 for one evening. All you have to do is attend the wedding with me, look happy, and be yourself." Nina stared at the card, her heart racing. $5,000 would cover Rosa's medical bills, their overdue rent, and still leave something for groceries. It was more money than she made in 3 months of brutal work. But something about the arrangement felt dangerous, like stepping into a world where she didn't belong. "Why me?" she asked quietly. "You could bring anyone, a model, a socialite, someone from your world." "Because you're real," Victor said. "Everyone in my circle is calculating, performing, trying to leverage connections. You just served me coffee without trying to impress me or network. That's exactly what I need." Someone genuine who won't play the social games Vanessa excels at. Nina picked up the card, her fingers trembling slightly. I don't have anything to wear to a black tie wedding. I don't know how to act around people like that. I'll handle the dress, the accessories, everything. Just say yes. Nina, help me show my ex that I've moved on to someone worth 10 times what she is. The desperation beneath his controlled exterior touched something in Nina. This was a man used to commanding boardrooms. Yet here, he sat in a diner at midnight, asking a waitress to help salvage his pride. And she, despite her better judgment, understood the weight of other people's perceptions. One evening, $5,000. And you promise I don't have to pretend to be someone I'm not? I want you exactly as you are. That's the entire point. Nina took a deep breath, feeling like she was stepping off a cliff. Okay, I'll do it. Victor's expression shifted, relief mingling with satisfaction. Good. I'll have my assistant contact you tomorrow with details. We'll need to meet before Saturday to coordinate. He stood, leaving several bills on the counter that far exceeded his coffee cost. As he reached the door, he turned back. Thank you, Nina. You might have just saved me from an unbearable weekend. After he left, Nina stood holding his business card, wondering what she had just agreed to. Rosa would think she was crazy. Her practical sister would lecture her about the risks of getting involved with wealthy strangers and their complicated lives. But $5,000 could change everything for them. It could buy breathing room, security, a moment to stop drowning in bills and exhaustion. For one night of playing dress-up in a world that would never truly accept her, she could give her sister the medical care she deserved. Nina locked up the diner an hour later, walking home through streets she knew by heart. The autumn air was crisp, and somewhere above the city lights, stars she could barely see continued their ancient patterns. She thought about Victor Ashford, about his bitterness and wounded pride, about the ex-girlfriend who still haunted him. This was just a transaction, she told herself. A simple exchange of time for money. Nothing more complicated than that. She would wear a beautiful dress, smile at strangers, and help a lonely billionaire prove a point. Then she would return to her real life, her real problems, her real world. But as Nina climbed the stairs to her apartment, some part of her whispered that nothing about this arrangement would be simple, and that stepping into Victor Ashford's world, even for one night, might change her in ways she couldn't yet imagine. The week between Nina's agreement and the wedding passed in a blur of surreal experiences. Victor's assistant, a brisk woman named Catherine, arrived at Nina's apartment Wednesday morning with a stylist, a personal shopper, and an agenda that made Nina's head spin. Mr. Ashford wants you comfortable but appropriate, Catherine explained as the stylist examined Nina's hair and skin. This isn't about transforming you into someone else. It's about presenting your best self. The shopping trip took them to boutiques Nina had only glimpsed from bus windows. The stylist, a kind woman named Delilah, steered her away from the most extravagant options toward an elegant emerald green gown that somehow made Nina feel both beautiful and authentically herself. The silk fabric draped perfectly, the color, bringing out the warmth in her brown eyes and olive skin. This is the one, Delilah announced. Simple, sophisticated, and it doesn't overwhelm you. You wear the dress, not the other way around. Thursday evening, Victor insisted on a rehearsal dinner at an upscale restaurant. Nina arrived nervous, wearing the nicest outfit she owned, a simple black dress from a department store clearance rack. Victor stood as she approached, his expression approving. You look lovely, he said, pulling out her chair. Relax, Nina. This is just dinner between two people getting to know each other. Over pasta and wine she barely touched, they constructed their story. They had met at a charity event 3 months ago. They had been dating quietly, keeping things private. Nina worked in nonprofit community outreach, which was close enough to the truth that she could speak about it naturally. What if someone asks specific questions I can't answer? Nina worried, twisting her napkin. Then be honest within reason, Victor advised. You're private about your work. You prefer meaningful conversation over small talk. People will respect that, especially coming from someone who isn't trying to impress them. He paused, studying her. Why are you really doing this, Nina? I know the money matters, but there's something else. Nina considered the question carefully. My sister Rosa is all I have. Our parents died when I was 19, and I've been taking care of her since. She's smart, talented, and she deserves chances I never got. The money helps, but honestly, part of me wants to see that world. The one where people don't count pennies or work until their bodies ache. Even if it's just pretend for one night. Victor's expression softened. It's not as glamorous as it appears. Most people in that ballroom Saturday will be performing just as much as you are. They'll just have more practice. Saturday arrived with autumn sunshine that felt like a blessing. Catherine and Delilah transformed Nina's apartment into a preparation station. Hair was styled into soft waves that cascaded over one shoulder. Makeup was applied with a light touch, enhancing rather than masking. When Nina finally stepped into the emerald gown, and the stylist fastened a delicate diamond necklace, borrowed for the evening, around her throat, she barely recognized herself in the mirror. You look like a princess, Rosa breathed from the doorway, her eyes wide. Nina's 19-year-old sister had been skeptical all week, but now she looked almost convinced. I look like I'm playing dress up, Nina corrected, but her voice held wonder. You look like yourself. Only more so, Delilah said firmly. That's the secret, honey. The dress and jewels are just decoration. Your confidence is what makes them matter. Victor arrived precisely at 4 o'clock, devastating, in a tailored black tuxedo. His eyes widened when he saw Nina, and for a moment, neither spoke. You're stunning, he finally said, his voice lower than usual. You clean up pretty well yourself, Nina managed, trying to calm her racing heart. The drive to the Grand Meridian Hotel took 20 minutes through city streets dressed in autumn colors. Victor briefed her on key people she might encounter. His mother, Eleanor Ashford, who meant well, but meddled constantly. His business partner, James Chen, who would be pleasant but distant. And Vanessa Sterling, the bride herself. What should I know about her? Nina asked. Victor's jaw tightened. Vanessa is beautiful, charming, and deeply strategic. She'll assess you immediately, looking for weaknesses. Don't let her intimidate you. She's marrying Derek Morrison because his family's shipping empire complements her father's real estate holdings. It's a merger disguised as romance. And you loved her? I thought I did. Now, think I love the idea of her. The perfect partner for a man building an empire. He glanced at Nina. I've learned since then that perfect is often another word for fake. The Grand Meridian's ballroom was a vision of white roses, crystal chandeliers, and understated elegance. Guests in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos filled the space with sophisticated conversation and restrained laughter. Nina felt her confidence waver as they entered, but Victor's hand at the small of her back steadied her. Remember, he murmured, you belong here as much as anyone. More, because you're not pretending to be something you're not. They made their entrance during the cocktail hour, and Nina felt eyes turning toward them. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Victor Ashford had brought a date, and she was no one anyone recognized. Eleanor Ashford descended on them within minutes, her silver gown and pearls, the epitome of old money elegance. Victor, darling, you came. Her eyes assessed Nina with practiced efficiency. And you brought a guest. Mother? This is Nina Torres. Nina, mother, Ellen. Nina extended her hand, meeting Eleanor's gaze directly. It's lovely to meet you, Mrs. Ashford. Thank you for welcoming me, Torres, Eleanor repeated, her tone neutral. Are you from the city? Born and raised. I work in community development and nonprofit outreach. The carefully constructed truth rolled smoothly off Nina's tongue. Before Eleanor could probe further, Victor guided Nina away toward the bar. You handled that perfectly. She's already trying to place you in her social taxonomy. Did I pass inspection? Nina asked wryly. You confused her, which is even better. She can't categorize you easily. As the evening progressed, Nina discovered something unexpected. When she stopped trying to impress people and simply engaged with them honestly, they responded with genuine interest. A philanthropist wife asked about her nonprofit work, and Nina spoke passionately about community centers and youth programs, drawing from her own experiences in those spaces. A tech executive found her questions about industry ethics refreshingly direct. A society matron laughed delightedly at Nina's unfiltered observations about the elaborate ice sculpture. Victor watched from various positions around the room, increasingly amazed. Nina wasn't performing or pretending. She was simply being herself, warm and authentic, and unintimidated by wealth or status. And people were drawn to her like flowers turning toward sunlight. Then Vanessa Sterling made her appearance for the pre-ceremony reception. She was, Nina had to admit, breathtaking in a white designer gown that probably cost more than Nina's annual salary. Platinum blonde hair, perfect features, and a smile that didn't quite reach her calculating blue eyes. She approached Victor with Derek Morrison in tow, a handsome man with weak features and inherited confidence. "Victor, how wonderful that you came. I was worried you might feel uncomfortable." "Well, not at all," Victor replied smoothly. "Vanessa, Derek, I'd like you to meet Nina Torres." Vanessa's eyes swept over Nina with barely concealed assessment, looking for flaws to exploit. Nina met her gaze steadily, offering a polite smile. "Torres," Vanessa repeated, the same way Eleanor had, as if trying to place the name among families she knew. "I don't believe we've met." "What do you do, Nina?" "Community development work," Nina answered simply. "Congratulations on your wedding. The venue is beautiful." "Yes." Derek spared no expense. His family has such exquisite taste. The emphasis on family and expense was deliberate, a subtle reminder of pedigree and wealth. "How did you and Victor meet?" "At a charity function," Victor interjected, his hand finding Nina's waist in a gesture of easy intimacy. Nina was there discussing her nonprofit's programs. "I was immediately intrigued." "How lovely." Vanessa's smile sharpened. "Victor has always had such a generous heart. I hope he explained that his schedule can be quite demanding. I never could compete with Ashford Technologies for his attention." Nina felt Victor tense beside her, recognizing the bar. Before he could respond, Nina spoke up, her voice warm but firm. "I imagine competing for attention becomes exhausting. Victor and I prefer supporting each other's passions rather than competing with them. But then, every relationship finds its own balance." Vanessa's expression flickered with surprise and something sharper, annoyance, perhaps, that her subtle attack had been deflected so gracefully. Derek, oblivious to the undercurrents, smiled blandly. "Well said, Victor. Good to see you've moved on. No hard feelings, right?" "None whatsoever," Victor assured him, though his eyes remained cold. "I hope you'll both be very happy." As the couple moved away to greet other guests, Victor exhaled slowly. "That was remarkable. You disarmed her completely." "She wanted to make me feel inferior," Nina observed. "But I spent years dealing with customers who thought service workers were beneath them. Her tricks are obvious once you recognize the pattern." The ceremony itself was elaborate and impersonal, more performance than intimacy. Nina sat beside Victor, acutely aware of his presence and the way his hand occasionally brushed hers. When Vanessa and Derek exchanged vows that sounded rehearsed rather than heartfelt, Nina glanced at Victor and found him watching her instead of the bride. The reception that followed transformed the ballroom into an even more opulent space. Dinner was served at elegantly appointed tables, and Nina found herself seated between Victor and James Chen. His business partner, James, proved surprisingly easy to talk with, and their conversation about technology, ethics, and social responsibility grew animated. Nina's questions came from genuine curiosity rather than networking ambition, and James responded with unguarded enthusiasm. "Victor, where have you been hiding her?" James demanded across the table. "Nina actually understands the ethical implications of AI development. Do you know how rare that is at these functions?" "I'm beginning to realize how rare Nina is in general," Victor replied, his gaze lingering on her flushed, happy face. As dinner concluded and dancing began, Nina watched couples take the floor with growing nervousness. Victor noticed and leaned close. "I should have asked, do you dance?" "Not like that," Nina admitted, watching the practiced elegance of waltzing couples. "I know how to dance at clubs and parties, but this is different. It's easier than it looks. Follow my lead." He stood, offering his hand, On the dance floor, Victor's hand settled at her waist, the other clasping hers gently. Small steps. I'll guide you. Just feel the rhythm and trust me. Nina stumbled, initially, hyper-aware of the elegant dancers around them and her own inexperience. But Victor was patient, his movements clear and easy to follow. Gradually, she relaxed into the rhythm, letting him lead, and found herself actually enjoying the sensation of moving together. You're doing beautifully, Victor murmured, his breath warm against her ear. I'm counting steps in my head and trying not to step on your expensive shoes. Stop thinking so much. Just feel. Nina looked up at him, finding his dark eyes fixed on her with an intensity that had nothing to do with dancing. The rest of the room seemed to fade, leaving just the two of them moving together in a bubble of awareness. This wasn't about revenge or appearances anymore. Something real was happening between them, something neither had planned. The song ended, but they remained close for a heartbeat longer than necessary before the spell broke and reality reasserted itself. The rest of the reception passed in a haze for Nina. She danced with James Chen and several other guests who requested her company, finding herself genuinely enjoying conversations that ranged from art to politics to community development. Victor remained close but not possessive, watching with growing admiration as Nina charmed everyone she encountered simply by being authentically herself. Near midnight, as the celebration began winding down, Vanessa approached Nina in the powder room. They were alone, surrounded by marble and gold fixtures, the muffled sound of music filtering through expensive walls. I wanted a moment to speak with you privately, Vanessa began, her voice stripped of its earlier sweetness. I know what Victor is doing, bringing you here to make me jealous, to prove he's moved on. It's rather transparent. Nina finished washing her hands before responding, meeting Vanessa's eyes in the mirror. Is it working? The blunt question caught Vanessa off guard. Excuse me, are you jealous? Nina turned to face her directly. Because from where I'm standing, you married someone else today. You're supposedly happy. Why would Victor's date matter to you at all? Vanessa's perfect composure cracked slightly. You don't understand our history. What we had. You're right, I don't. But I understand that you hurt him, and he spent 2 years rebuilding himself. Whatever his reasons for bringing me tonight, he deserves to move forward without you questioning his choices. You're not his usual type, Vanessa said, recovering her cutting tone. You're pretty in a common way, but you don't have the background, the connections, the education that someone in Victor's position requires. This little fantasy will end when he remembers what he actually needs in a partner. Nina felt the words land like intended blows, striking at insecurities she had carried all week. But something Victor had said earlier returned to her. People in this world were performing, and Vanessa's performance included making others feel small. Maybe I'm not what he needs, Nina acknowledged calmly, but I'm also not spending my wedding day cornering my ex's date in a bathroom. That seems like something someone truly happy wouldn't bother doing. She walked out before Vanessa could respond, her heart pounding, but her head high. Victor found her moments later on the terrace, where she had escaped for air. There you are. Everything all right? Nina considered lying, then rejected it. They had built this evening on a foundation of transaction and pretense, but somewhere along the way, honesty had crept in. Vanessa cornered me, said some things designed to make me feel inadequate. She was partially successful. Victor's expression darkened. What did she say? That I'm not your usual type. That I lack the background and connections you need. That this is a fantasy that will end when you return to reality. Nina wrapped her arms around herself against the autumn chill. She's not entirely wrong, she. This has been an amazing evening, but it's not real. Tomorrow, go back to my life, and you go back to yours. Victor removed his jacket and draped it over her shoulders, the gesture tender. What if I don't want that? Nina's breath caught. Victor, you paid me to be here. This was a transaction, remember? Revenge against your ex. It started that way, he admitted, moving closer. But somewhere between teaching you to dance and watching you charm every person in that ballroom, it became something else. You were right earlier when you said Vanessa wanting to make you jealous meant it was working. But not for the reasons she thinks. I don't understand. I brought you here to prove I had moved on from Vanessa. Instead, you proved that I had been in love with the wrong person all along." His hands found her shoulders, his touch gentle. "You were more real, more genuine, more captivating in one evening than Vanessa managed in 2 years. Not because you tried to be, but because you couldn't be anything else." Nina's eyes filled with tears. "I'm a grocery store clerk who waitresses at diners. I live in a tiny apartment with my sister, and I count pennies before buying food. Your world tonight was beautiful, but it's not mine. I don't belong there." "You belong there more than half the people in that room who were born into it," Victor countered. "But that's not the point. The point is, I don't care about backgrounds or connections. I care about authenticity, intelligence, kindness. The qualities you demonstrated tonight without even trying." "This is crazy," Nina whispered, though she didn't pull away from his touch. "We barely know each other. Then let's change that. Have dinner with me tomorrow. Not as my paid date. Just as Nina and Victor. Two people getting to know each other without pretense or performance. And what happens when you realize I can't fit into your world long term? When your mother and your business associates expect someone more suitable. I spent years building my life according to what others expected. It left me in a relationship with someone I thought I should want, rather than someone I actually wanted. I'm done with that. The question isn't whether you fit my world, Nina. It's whether I can fit into yours." Before she could respond, the terrace doors opened and James Chen appeared. "Victor, your mother is looking for you to say goodbye to the bride and groom. They're leaving shortly." He glanced between them, his expression knowing. "Sorry to interrupt." The moment fractured, but something had been established between them. As they returned to the ballroom for final pleasantries, Victor's hand remained at Nina's back, a silent promise that this conversation would continue. Saying goodbye to Vanessa and Derek was mercifully brief. Vanessa's eyes lingered on Nina with barely concealed frustration, recognizing that whatever power she had held over Victor had been thoroughly broken. Derek remained oblivious, jovially thanking guests for attending. Eleanor Ashford caught Nina's hand as they prepared to leave. "It was lovely meeting you, my dear. I hope we'll see more of you," her tone suggested. She wasn't entirely sure how she felt about that prospect, but she was willing to reserve judgment. In the car driving back to Nina's apartment, silence stretched between them, charged with unspoken thoughts. Finally, Victor broke it. "I meant what I said on the terrace. I'd like to see you again. Not as part of any arrangement, just because I want to know you better." Nina studied his profile in the passing streetlights. "What if we're too different? What if this feeling tonight is just the magic of the setting, and in daylight, it doesn't make sense? Then we figure that out together. But I think you're scared because this became real. And real is riskier than a transaction." He was right, and Nina knew it. She had entered this evening with clear boundaries, a simple exchange of service for payment. But somewhere between champagne toasts and dancing in his arms, she had started imagining possibilities she had no business considering. When they reached her building, Victor walked her to the door like a gentleman from another era. In the dim light of the entrance, Nina looked up at him, this man who had disrupted her carefully controlled life, with one impulsive invitation. "Tomorrow," she said softly. "Dinner, but somewhere regular. Not one of those places where they don't list prices on the menu." Victor smiled, the expression transforming his usually serious face. "I know just the place. Danny's Diner. I seem to remember they have excellent coffee." Nina laughed, the sound surprised and genuine. "You want to take me on our first real date, to the place where you originally hired me for this scheme? I want to return to where it started, and see where it might go." He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear in a gesture so tender Nina's breath caught. "Thank you for tonight. Not for playing a role, but for being yourself. You have no idea how rare and valuable that is." He kissed her then, soft and questioning, a promise rather than a demand. Nina responded without thinking, her hands finding his shoulders as the kiss deepened into something that felt like a beginning. When they finally separated, both were breathless. Victor rested his forehead against hers. "Tomorrow, 6 o'clock. I'll be there." Nina watched him return to his car, her fingers touching her lips, where the taste of him lingered. Inside her apartment, Rosa was waiting up, despite the late hour. "Well?" her sister demanded. "How was it? Did you pull it off?" Nina sank onto their worn couch, Victor's jacket still wrapped around her shoulders. It was magical and terrifying and completely unexpected. Did his ex get jealous? Yes. But that stopped mattering about halfway through the evening. Nina met her sister's curious eyes. "Rosa, I think I'm in trouble. This was supposed to be simple, but I'm falling for him." Rosa sat beside her, concerned. "Nina, he's a billionaire. You worked tonight as his hired date. Are you sure this is real, and not just him being charming?" "I'm not sure of anything, except that when he asked to see me again, as myself, without any pretense, I wanted to say yes more than I've wanted anything in a long time." "Then say yes," Rosa advised quietly. "You've spent 5 years taking care of everyone else, working yourself to exhaustion, never taking chances. Maybe it's time to be a little reckless, to see where this goes. What if I get hurt? What if you don't? What if this is real, and you let fear rob you of something beautiful?" The next evening, Nina arrived at Danny's diner in jeans and a simple sweater, her hair down and her face bare of the previous night's elegant makeup. She was nervous, but determined to be completely herself, to give this chance a real foundation. Victor was already there, wearing casual clothes that somehow still looked expensive but approachable. He stood when she entered, his smile warm and genuine. "Hi," Nina said softly, sliding into the booth across from him. "Hi yourself. You look beautiful." "I look normal. Last night was the beautiful version. Last night was the dressed up version. This is the real version, and I prefer it." He reached across the table, his hand finding hers. "I've been thinking about you all day, about what you said regarding our different worlds. Victor, I need you to be honest with me. What are you looking for here? Because I can't be your rebellion against expectations or your proof that you've changed. I need this to be real, or I need to walk away now before I get into deep." His thumb traced circles on her palm, the touch sending warmth through her. "I'm looking for someone who sees me, not my bank account or my connections. Someone who challenges me to be better, who reminds me why any of my success matters. I'm looking for what I felt last night when you defended me to Vanessa, when you danced with me, when you made everyone in that room you simply by being kind and authentic. And what if it doesn't work? What if your world and mine are too different to reconcile? Then we'll have tried, and I'll have had the privilege of knowing you. But I think you're underestimating yourself, Nina. You didn't just survive in my world last night. You thrived there, not because you became someone else, but because you remained stubbornly, beautifully yourself." Nina felt tears threatening again, overwhelmed by the sincerity in his voice. "I'm scared. I'm scared of getting hurt, of not being enough, of this being temporary." "I'm scared too," Victor admitted. "I'm scared of messing this up, of my habits and expectations damaging something precious before it has a chance to grow. But I think being scared together might be better than being safe and alone." Their waitress appeared, the same older woman who had worked the night Victor first came in. She looked between them with knowing eyes. "You two want your usual? And maybe some privacy?" They ordered, and as simple diner food arrived, they talked. Really talked, without scripts or agendas. Victor told her about building his company from nothing, about the loneliness of success, about his mother's well-meaning interference and his realization that Vanessa had never truly known him. Nina shared stories of losing her parents, of raising Rosa while barely being an adult herself, of dreams deferred but never forgotten. Hours passed like minutes. The diner emptied and refilled with the late-night crowd. And still they talked, discovering shared values beneath surface differences, finding humor in each other's stories, building something fragile and real. As the evening finally wound down, Victor walked Nina home through streets lit by street lamps and autumn stars. At her building entrance, he took both her hands in his. "I want to do this right. Date you properly. Introduce you to parts of my life that matter. Meet your sister officially. Take our time building something solid. Can we do that? Take our time and see where this goes." Nina nodded, unable to speak past the emotion in her throat. She had walked into his car on a rainy night weeks ago by accident, had agreed to his scheme out of desperation. and had somehow found herself standing at the beginning of something that felt like destiny. The following months unfolded like a dream Nina kept expecting to end. Victor was true to his word, pursuing her with patient determination while respecting her boundaries and insecurities. He met Rosa, charming her younger sister, with genuine interest in her college studies and plans. Nina met his mother again, this time as Victor's girlfriend, and slowly won over Eleanor's skepticism through consistent authenticity. The class differences remained, creating occasional awkward moments, but they navigated them together, Victor learning to appreciate Nina's world, while Nina grew comfortable in his. She kept her job initially, unwilling to become dependent, but eventually accepted a position with Victor's charitable foundation doing community outreach work she was genuinely passionate about. 6 months after the wedding, Victor took Nina back to the Grand Meridian Hotel. She was confused until he led her to the same terrace where they had first acknowledged their feelings. "I've been thinking about that night," Victor began, his hands holding hers. "About how I brought you here for all the wrong reasons, and you ended up being everything I never knew I needed. Victor, what are we doing here?" He dropped to one knee, pulling out a simple ring, elegant, but not ostentatious. "I'm asking you to marry me, not because you fit some image of what my wife should be, but because you're funny and kind and real. Because you challenge me and support me and make me want to be better. Because I love you, Nina Torres, exactly as you are." Nina's tears flowed freely as she pulled him to his feet. "Yes, yes, of course, yes." Their kiss tasted of salt and laughter, and promises being made. When they finally separated, Nina looked around the terrace, remembering that night months ago. "Your mother is going to have opinions about wedding planning, probably. Can you handle her?" "I've handled ruder people for less money. I think I can manage your mother for love." Victor laughed, the sound free and happy. "I still can't believe you got into my car by mistake that night. I still can't believe you asked a waitress to be your revenge date. Best mistake I ever made. Best decision you ever made." They stood on the terrace as the city spread below them, two people from different worlds, who had found each other through accident and stayed through choice. Their story wasn't about a poor girl rescued by a wealthy man. It was about two people who recognized in each other what they had been missing, who chose authenticity over pretense, and who built love on a foundation of mutual respect and genuine partnership. And it all started with one impulsive invitation, one brave acceptance, and one wedding where the revenge plot became irrelevant because something real and unexpected had taken its place. The billionaire had invited a waitress to prove a point to his ex. Instead, fate had given them both something far more valuable than revenge. It had given them love.